The June 19th regular council meeting to order. All members of council are here. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wyandot peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Please stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. And at this time, I would like to present Councillor Verbeek and her husband, Steve Verbeek, with a certificate of acknowledgement on their 40th year wedding anniversary. And she didn't know we were doing this, but 40 years is quite the milestone. So I'll just pass this down there. Councillor Verbeek, congratulations. And we will move to our clerk, Joseph Malandrucolo, for the closed meeting reports of June 13th.
Thank you. Through you, Mary Bondi. I can report that council met in closed session on Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 at 4 p.m. to discuss a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of the organization, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, as permitted by Section 239, Sub 2, I and F of the Municipal Act, as amended. At the meeting, ELK Energy Incorporated provided council with a shareholder presentation. Council also met on Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to discuss litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality, and to discuss advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, as permitted to do so by way of Section 239 2E and F of the Municipal Act. At this meeting, council was presented with an update on legal files, and that's the extent of my report.
Declarations from members of council regarding conflict of interest. Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder for the adopting of the public agenda for June 19th. Moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Adoption of the minutes from the June 5th regular council meeting, needing a mover and a seconder. Councillor Verbeek, Councillor Guerin, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? 7.2, adopting the minutes from the June 5th regular or special council meeting, sorry. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Guerin, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously too. We have no public presentations tonight, no unfinished business. We will go to 10, reports from administration. 10.1, planning 2314, subdivision development agreement, phase 2, Sunset Gardens, residential development, Ward 1 or Ward 4. Recommended actions that the planning report be received and that bylaw 2250 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on June 19th. We also do have Brian and Zach available here in the audience if council does have any questions. So needing a mover and a seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Counselor Hammond. Any questions, comments from council? Counselor Hammond.
Through you, Your Honor. More or less just a statement. I made it before when this was coming through. My concern then was the stormwater removal for the properties, particularly that back up against the field that'll be remaining. We seem to have a problem in Harrow that with the subdivisions as they take up farmland, the subsequent properties that are up against the fields, not necessarily all the time, but when we have a significant rain, like the most recent ones, we have complaints of flooding, particularly along these borderlines that have houses versus farm fields. But yet I can't seem to get any kind of answer when I ask about the precautions or the studies that are done regarding the stormwater removal, and it continues to be a problem surrounding Harrow and these farmlands and the subdivisions that back up to them. I just wish that we could start making some more, giving us some more information regarding these properties, and if there's any solutions to them or what these potential homeowners can expect, considering we're experiencing more severe storms as this climate change progresses. Thank you.
Counselor Hammond, I'm not sure if we want to go to Director Chadwick or Director Gerard, if you have any comments on Counselor Hammond's comments. Director Gerard?
Yes, through the mayor, I can speak to the stormwater management that is regulated on this subdivision. So there is a stormwater management plan that is a condition of the subdivision. It has been reviewed by the town of Essex, and we are comfortable with the fact that they will be retaining the water and controlling any stormwater management flows in accordance with the regional guideline.
Counselor Hammond for raising that. Thank you. Oh, Director Chadwick.
Bondi, and furthermore, to add to Director Gerard's comments, one block within the plan of subdivision will be dedicated as a stormwater management pond. So the subdivision will be managing its own stormwater and one pond dedicated just for that.
Counselor Mady.
Through you, Chair. Reviewing the plan here, I noticed that all the homes are single family dwellings. Was there any thought given to more intensification? We've been hearing a lot lately about how the province really wants more intensification of population and subdivisions. I just noticed that this seemed to be lacking any of that.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. I think if suitable, the question could be posed to the developer. The application that was put before us was for single detached dwellings and is a permitted use. However, I think the question could be responded to if appropriate by the developer.
Okay, so at this point, I need to just seek clarification from the clerks because we do have a motion on the table. And technically, I'm supposed to get a motion to allow the delegates to speak. So, like, we have a motion on the table and I'm supposed to get a motion to have the delegates speak. So should we get a motion to table the motion or? Okay, Brian, Zach, if either one of you want to go back there to the delegate podium. Okay, so the question is just about single family versus intensification.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Through you, Mayor Bondi. Brian Pierce, by the way, Principal Planner with Barrett AE. We thought about that as well. We know our market for Harrow fairly well. There's demand for singles still within Harrow, as the mayor probably can appreciate in her ward, and some of the other counselors at this table. Is development happening in Harrow is a good thing. We're happy to see single detached. There's opportunities for additional dwelling units, as council's probably heard about the legislative changes that got pushed down through the Ford government to allow ADUs on properties. There's opportunities to densify the single detached framework that was approved by the county on this. And, you know, nothing precludes an opportunity to redline revise the draft plan should market conditions change into a different housing form on the property as well. But the intent today is to move fully forward with the single detached product for 59 dwelling unit that was approved of just 2 months ago.
Further questions from members of council? Seeing none, we do have a motion on the table, so I'm going to ask all in favor. And that is carried unanimously. Congratulations and good luck. Let us know when you get the shovel in the ground. We'll come on out. 10.2 Planning 2023-12 Part Lot Exemption and Extension for certain lands within the registered plan. Phase 1 of the Greenleaf Trails Residential Subdivision, Ward 4. And we'll go to Director Chadwick before we get a motion.
Thank you once again, Mayor Bondi, and good evening, council. Since this type of application may be new to some of our newest councilors, we thought we would take this opportunity to describe what part lot control exemption actually is. In summary, part lot control exemption, or PLCE, that we like to call it in our acronym loving world, is a planning instrument used to facilitate or to subdivide the subdivision of townhome or semi-detached blocks into individual lots. That's used to facilitate the sale of those individual lots once construction is complete. So this is why you'll see on a draft plan of subdivision sometimes a block that is rather large, depending on how many future townhome dwelling units will be there. And once the structure is built, the property lines are then established. And then PLCE is that instrument that allows for the individual lots to be sold. This approach is used because it's quite difficult for a builder to ensure that the common shared wall between the dwelling units is constructed exactly on the property line. So that's why you'll see that block. And similarly, you'll rarely see townhome or semi-detached lots created on a plan of subdivisions until the dwellings are actually built. So I hope that helps describe what PLCE is. Thank you.
Explaining that to us. Need a motion from council to receive the planning report 2023 be received in that bylaw 2248, being a bylaw to provide for part lot control exemption, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on June 19th. Councillor Mady, Councillor McGuire Blaze, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. 10.3 Planning 2023-18 Town of Essex Heritage Park Program. And we will go to Director Chadwick again, and I believe Rita Jabor may be on Zoom, but we'll go to Director first.
Once again, Mayor Bondi. Actually, tonight, Ms. Jabor, our Manager of Planning Services, is not able to attend, so I am presenting this report on her behalf. The purpose of the report is to inform Council of the implementation of a heritage farm program for the town of Essex. On average, Ontario is losing the equivalent of 9 family farms per week, due mainly to urban sprawl and new housing developments. Long-term stewardship of agricultural land is an important element of our local history. Our Essex Municipal Heritage Committee has recognized this trend and has worked with the Planning Division under the direction or under the management of Ms. Jabor to develop a heritage farm program to recognize farmlands managed for generations by the same family. The program is application-based. Lands must be actively used for agricultural purposes, and lineage may be traced either matrilineal or patrilineal. Successful applicants will receive a beautiful town-issued sign to identify the lands as a heritage farm. The signs will also include a QR code, which passersby could easily scan to link to a web page dedicated to the program, and where a short history of the farm will also be displayed on the web page. Applications will be available on the web page shortly. Please keep an eye out for some communications, and interested applicants can contact or submit an application to the Planning Division at heritage@essex.ca. Thank you.
Mover and a seconder, and then comments and questions from council. We need a mover and a seconder that the planning report 2023-18 entitled Heritage Farm Plaque Program be received. Councillor Guerin, Councillor Allard, and comments, questions from council. Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. I do have two questions. The first is, does this getting this heritage designation, does it prohibit the farm owner from ever developing the lands in the future if that's ever a possibility for him or her? And does it stop anything? And once it's sold, second question, once it's sold, so the family, let's say, is getting out of farming and they sell it, does the designation then leave the property, or does it continue with the new owner?
Thank you, Mayor Bondy, through you to Councillor McGuire Blaze. So construction or development on an agricultural property is not prohibited or limited by a farm program or a recognition of a heritage farm, but rather is regulated through a zoning bylaw as well as our official plan. So construction would not be prohibited unless it's in contravention of our zoning bylaw or official plan. So that plaque or that recognition is solely for recognizing the linear heritage of that farm. The other question is pertaining to the lineage. The application I don't have before me, unfortunately, to be able to decipher or determine whether or not it would, say, prevent or remove that designation if the plaque, if the property owner were to be sold to a different family. But I can certainly follow up and send council an email or send you an email afterwards and copy all of council to be made aware of what would happen in the case of if an agricultural property were to be sold and what would happen to that farm plaque. I'm really not sure at this moment.
Further questions or comments from members of council? I think this is awesome. What a great way to celebrate our farming community and farms that stay in families. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. 10.4 Fire and Rescue Services 2023-05 Malden Colchester Town Road Report. We will go to our fire chief, Chief Arnell. He's on Zoom, and then we will receive the report. Welcome.
We're reporting back on a report, a presentation that came to council. So Essex Fire undertook the task of reviewing the address known as 3300 County Road 20. We approached our emergency service partners and did a test so we could confirm and be able to respond to the correct address of 3300 County Road 20 in the event of an emergency. And all three agencies were able to locate that address. So as you see in the report, so what we're looking for is our findings show that we recommend that the Malden Colchester Town Line Road name remain the same, that council would direct administration, our GIS specialist, to contact Google Maps and request to remove Concession Road 7 and add Malden Colchester Town Line Road to their mapping system, and that council direct administration to put some proper signage up installed in regards to that Malden Colchester Town Line. That's our report.
Arnell, needing a mover and a seconder that Fire and Rescue Services report be received and that council authorize Malden Colchester Township Road remains road, and that council direct administration to approach Google Maps to request to remove Concession Road 7 from their mapping service and update with Malden Colchester Town Line Road, and that council direct administration to install proper road name signage for this road. Meeting mover and a seconder, Councillor Allard, Councillor Hammond, and comments to the report in the motion. Councillor Hammond.
The name we, through you, Chair, was that the name we had chosen was, Colchester Malden Town Line? I know when the report came, when the, news came to us that there was a discrepancy there, I think the naming was still up in the air, but, I'm just.
Mayor Bondi to Councillor Hammond. When this was first presented, administration was directed to look at an option. It's to change a name or to keep the name. Based on the research, it's recommended to keep the same name. If we do ever come, just for council's information, to change a name, we do have a formal policy.
Comments on this item? I do have one myself, probably to our Director of Infrastructure Services, Kevin Gerard, or maybe our CAO suite. Have we ever had success approaching Google Maps to change a name of a road? My understanding, they've been really hard to get changes. CAO suite?
Bondi, I am not sure, but we do have our manager of communications on virtually, and I'm not sure if Mr. Totola knows, because he would deal with Google on a regular basis more than myself, our Director Gerard.
Everyone, through you, the mayor. Yeah, so it's definitely something we can look into. We would definitely have to put a formal request through to Google. They do have a platform that allows us to essentially go online through our current Google account and request the change. So something that we would have to investigate. We haven't done it recently. So I can't really speak to exactly how it works, but something we can definitely look into.
Thank you for that. I'm just wondering if we can set a reminder in our calendar to like double check back on this issue to make sure that Google is eventually going to update it. Because I've just heard from past experiences, maybe in other municipalities, that Google is slow to change things. Any further questions, comments? Oh, Colin, our youth council member, Colin.
Propose maybe an amendment to this motion that we also include Apple Maps, which I believe have the same issue as Google currently.
Okay, thank you. Who was our mover and our seconder? Okay, is that okay with the mover and the seconder? Okay, friendly amendment it is. Okay, so everybody understand the motion that we're adding Apple Maps. Any further comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. 10.5 Economic Development 2023-11 Building Report and Development Overview, May 2023. Recommended action that the Economic Development Report be received. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of that? That is carried unanimously. 10.6 Economic Development 2023-10 Business Supports and Promotions regarding the Essex Center streetscape. And we will go to our Manager of Economic Development. We also have Mark Totula, our Manager of Strategic Communications, here too. Welcome, Nelson.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. This is a report in response to the report presented to council on June 5th, or the notice of motion on June 5th. Council directed administration to come up with several action items, which we have presented in this report. There's also some budget implications, which we've split up between two separate accounts, council contingency and the business retention and expansion action plan fund. So these actions are for council's consideration, and I will throw it over to council for any comment.
Questions, comments from members of council? I do want to thank our administration for listening to the comments raised by council and the members of our business community and bringing these concerns back. Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you, through the chair. So I just have a comment. Doing this extra work is really beneficial to our small businesses in the downtown area. And since our last council meeting, I want to express some gratitude towards our administration from the small businesses. They were unaware of some of the initiatives that administration had already taken for them, such as putting the ads in the Biz X magazine. So they just wanted to express their thanks for going and doing that initiative. There's a lot of things that not everybody gets to see all the time. So bringing it to council and putting it out there, like we did 2 weeks ago, I think has benefited at least the business owners, that we are trying our very best to help bring business to the downtown area. And everything here, all of our businesses, well, the ones that I spoke to, we're really happy to see that we're putting more effort to help keep them going. So thank you to administration, thank you to Nelson, on behalf of the small businesses in Essex.
Counselor Garen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, to administration, timelines for these, particularly the direct mail campaign, and I see the billboard campaign 8-week. What months are those billboards available? I'm wondering when we can get started with some of this stuff.
Yeah, through you, your worship. So as indicated in the report, as soon as council passes the motion, we will begin work immediately. So to your question on the direct mail campaign, we obviously have to do the design in-house, and Mark can speak to that. And then we'd have to go to print. And then obviously work with Canada Post to get it sent direct mail to over 5,000 households. So I'm thinking sometime in mid-July, I think is reasonable to have those out to direct mail. And then in terms of the billboard, once we come up with the design, we're looking at one specific billboard, which would be digital. So that would be a quick one out on Highway 3. The next one, we'd have to identify what space is available on a Highway 3 billboard in print. They've been busy pretty much in terms of space on those billboards. So we've identified a couple, and we're working with Pattison and some other groups on which ones would be a strategic location for driving business into the downtown. So by July, we should have the majority of these initiatives completed.
For you, Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, I really, of course, like the idea of this mail out piece, but it's a lot of money. And I'm just wondering if we give it any consideration to just a quick shout out. I mean, if they can turn it around fast to the BIA, if they had any input. I mean, I know it's about parking information and trying to drive people to the downtown, but maybe the BIA wants to, put a small incentive on this mail out. I mean, if we're only going to do it once and it's going to cost that much money, maybe, they might come together with an incentive, like bring in this card and get $5 off your purchase, or get $5 in BIA bucks, or a percentage. I'm just asking that maybe we give the BIA some input on the card that's going to go out to 7,000 homes.
Yeah, through you, your worship, absolutely. So we can have those conversations, see if there's a potential partnership on content on the actual direct mail out campaign, and potentially whatever that partnership looks like. Maybe it's in digital as well, not just the mail out. So absolutely, we'll have those conversations. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thing further, I have Counselor Hammond and Counselor Meady.
Bishop, I just want to touch base on the mail outs and stuff like that. I've had some experience with the large mail outs. One thing I like you to consider, and having gone through the town in a peak time today, it's quite a cluster out there. Sometimes when you do a mass mail out like that, you get a big response all at once, and then you're not able to accommodate that big response. Maybe dealing through the BIA, you might want to consider a partial mail out here, maybe a partial mail out there. I don't know what you're expecting in your response, but it just might be something you want to consider.
Hammond, Counselor Meady.
through you, Chair. I just kind of wanted to check the numbers and maybe highlight the amount of investment that this is actually going to be. Council is going to agree to $4,500 from our contingency fund, but another $16,250 is actually coming from the Business Retention and Expansion Act as part of this for facade improvements maybe and some other stuff. So we're looking at like $20,750 that we're actually going to be putting back into our downtown, which I do believe they need the help, and I'm excited that we're able to do that. Thank you. If those numbers are the correct numbers.
So maybe any further questions from members of council? I do have a question that, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Director Drusevich, but do you roughly remember how much is in our council contingency fund after this expense? And you can get back to us in a minute. I do have a question for maybe Nelson or Mark. The mini facade, I think that's great that we're resurfacing that. You know, during construction, it's a good time for businesses to take advantage of this. What I like about it is it's 100% non-repayable refurbishing grant for their outside. So that if they have an outdated sign or a window or bricks, now's the time to do it while we're in construction already. What is going to be our method of communication for some of these items, particularly the facade? Because I think that's something that was part of our CIP program that we no longer did. And when it comes back, I think it could be a hot item. I just want to make sure that we're getting the word out.
Yeah, through you, your worship. I know Mark can touch on this a little bit as well, but my thoughts on this is we would open an application intake for about 4 weeks to garner some interest from business community. Obviously, we would push this on our socials. We'd push this messaging out to the Essex BIA as well. When we do our walkabouts in the downtown, this is another point of discussion for the business community as well that we can bring up to them as a potential opportunity from the town of Essex. So we're hoping that the program is fully subscribed. I think it will be in my conversations with the businesses down there. I know that there's a few that like to do some outside improvements to their building. So this is just one more initiative that I thought would be potentially beneficial to those businesses.
Yeah, and through the mayor,
Really
just to
great.
build on what Nelson had said. So because it's such a niche project and a niche target audience, we definitely will, rely on that one-on-one communication, whether it's through the walkouts or through, we do have an email list that we can also reach out to reach businesses directly. So that definitely would be our primary form of communication, and then kind of enhancing that with our social media promotions, web promotions, some of those channels as well.
Thank you. Director Drusevich.
Through the chair. So should the $4,500 be approved tonight, the remaining funds in the council contingency capital project would be $14,410.
Okay, thank you for that. I do like the idea of partnering with the BIA. My one comment right now is I would like all of these things to happen in the report to happen as soon as possible. So don't really want to delay things by a couple of weeks. And perhaps in the future, perhaps late summer, we want to do another mail out, and maybe that one can be partnered with the BIA. I do know that the BIA isn't, according to the website, they're not meeting for the next little bit. So maybe we just want to go forward with this and then come back with the BIA again. All right, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we don't have a motion on the table, right? Looking for a motion that the business supports and promotions Essex Center Streetscape be received, and that council approve the expenditure of $4,500 from our council contingency fund to support the business promotion initiatives outlined in the report. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek. Seeing no other questions or comments, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Great work, Mark and Nelson. 10.7 Capital Works and Asset Management 2023-10 South Talbot and Reed Street intersection improvement. Recommended action that Capital Works Asset Management report be received and that council direct administration to refrain from making any improvements to the intersection of South Talbot Road and Reed Street, and that council direct administration to prepare a review by council and a draft bylaw to erect stop signs for the creation of an all-way stop at the intersection of South Talbot Road and Reed Street. Need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Mady, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Questions or comments to the report in motion? Counselor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. I'm just wondering why there's such a discrepancy in the price that we were given a few months ago and the price that we're now seeing that's canceling this project.
Gerard?
Through the mayor. When we prepare our budgets, we actually prepare them a year in advance. So this estimate would have been put together by our team back in the summer of 2022. So we put this estimate together using the best asphalt and construction pricing that we have on record at the time. When we actually went to procure it, we got the actual values that would be required to do it. And it came in much higher than what we anticipated. And I would assume that a lot of that has to do with inflation and just it being a small project and contractors being very busy right now. It doesn't seem to be a large priority for the contractor community at the moment.
I really don't like canceling this project because it's over budget. And then we see that there's another project and a smaller one coming up next on the list to go over. You're suggesting we go over budget on the next item on our list, but cancel this one. Whereas this affects hundreds of people on a daily basis going through this intersection. I don't support this. I'm not going to vote for this. I think this road needs to happen, and I think we need to figure out how to make that work because I don't see us waiting any longer to fix that intersection. There's no plan in place. You're basically saying we're just not going to do it. We have no plan. I don't like it, and I think that this intersection affects too many people in Ward 1 to just put it to the side at the moment.
Blaze. Oh, Director Gerard.
I do just want to provide a point of clarity. In the report, it does identify that we have conducted a study, a transportation study that did indicate that the intersection of Maidstone Avenue and South Talbot Road would need to be improved to accommodate traffic related to the commercial industrial area, the removal of the entrance and exit to Highway 3, as well as the development in the area, especially the residential development, the Essex Town Center. So the intent and the recommendation is that the improvements at the intersection of Reed Street and South Talbot be delayed and occur with the improvements to Maidstone and South Talbot. Not that there isn't a plan or that there isn't an ultimate end goal to improve this intersection.
Thank you through the chair. So I understand that that's a plan. Have you spoken with the county on starting this? Is there a start date with the county to start the Maidstone South Talbot intersection? Because that's really the plan that I'm looking for is something in writing that you have with the county that says, okay, listen, we're gonna start this intersection in spring 2024. If you can say that, then okay, I'm okay with delaying it a year. But right now, we don't have a plan with the county. We don't have an agreement. So how long is it going to take to get the county to agree to this intersection and for the work to get done on this much needed road?
Mayor, we've actually met with the County of Essex on this intersection 3 times, the most recent one being this morning. We actually have agreed to both include requests to our respective councils to undertake the preliminary engineering on that intersection and include each of us included in our 2024 budget requests.
Councillor Verbeek.
You, Madam Chair. So I wanted to support this as submitted because although I originally was pushing for the changes in that intersection because it needed to have the changes that are there right now, it needs more. But I'm also grateful that we're gonna back up the work and not throw money after it until after the real issue at Maidstone there is addressed, and once that intersection is fixed. But my question is, the stop sign, the changes that were made there a few months ago, I understand they have created that it's been a positive response. I mean, it's far from perfect, and it does need more work after we fix the big intersection there. But are you, like, I mean, what we have done is working right now, isn't it? The new stop, has it improved, or are we still having the same issues there?
We have, like any changes to any traffic in the town of Essex, we've received positive and negative response to the three-way stop. I will say that the majority of the complaints are related to peak hour traffic. So there are instances during peak hour traffic where the commercial restaurants in that area do receive a lot of additional traffic, particularly in the morning hours and at lunchtime. So we have had some complaints that there's some traffic backup in that area. But on the other note, similar to what our investigation told us, there is some residents who are happy to see the changes, because there was a bit of a intersection orientation issue there with not recognizing which way was the through route and which way needed to stop and yield to traffic, which is why we put up the temporary stop signs in the first place. So we have received some mixed reviews. And to your point that you made, we just don't see the value in spending, upwards of $100,000 to make this minor improvement. And it really just kind of boiled down to us, is it worth $100,000 to remove 2 stop signs? And the answer to us was no. So there is a possibility of including it within the scope of the Maidstone and South Talbot intersection improvements, which we could realize some financial benefits from economies of scale perspective.
Counselor Garen, then Counselor Meady.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, I mean, I don't really think it's a minor issue at all. I think that intersection needs to be revamped. I think once that Home Hardware is open, I think it's going to be a debacle down there. I really do. But right now, it might not be a bad idea to put it off a little bit, because with the streetscape going on and people looking for alternative routes, at least that is open. There's a lot of people that are taking that road. They would normally go up Maidstone, but they're so frustrated when they get up Maidstone that they can't get through. They're taking that way. So if there's a plan with the county and we can get pushing on it and get it going like sooner than later, I do think it's going to be needed, because Home Hardware is just going to bring in more and more down there, and all the homes going in, it's definitely needed. And I don't want to have the stop signs there. I think they're working right now for the intent they're being used for. But I think once we do make that change, that making that road a throughway is going to be the key. So under the circumstances, I think I'm going to have to support it, unfortunately.
For you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think having the money left over and possibly the money that's not going to be spent right now to put forward into the engineering for the permanent solutions, a good idea. The part of this that council direct administration to prepare and review for council a draft bylaw to erect stop signs and the creation of an all-way stop. Can you explain that a little bit more? What's different than what's there right now?
So when the road opened up and there was a significant amount of traffic traveling the area, administration made a decision to erect temporary stop signs to address the safety concerns, until we could come up with either a plan to make them permanent or to reconstruct that intersection. So the intent was for that intersection to remain a three-way stop temporarily. If council does decide to proceed with the recommendation to legalize the intersection as a three-way stop, it does need to be passed by bylaw by council. So that's the recommendation before you, is to create the three-way stop, and the bylaw can be repealed once the improvements occur to the intersection at Maidstone and South Talbot, and that work and it no longer becomes a three-way stop.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from members of council? I really like how Councillor McGuire Blaze got an answer for 2024. I think I can wait till 2024, but we're watching. We need a motion, right? Or we have one? We have one. All right, all in favor of that motion? Opposed? Do you want it noted? No, okay. 10.8 Capital Works and Asset Management 2023-09 McCormick Beach Road cul-de-sac request for quote results. The Capital Works and Asset Management Report 2023-09 be received and that council approve the additional funding of $17,045.15 above the approved capital budget of $40,000 for the McCormick Beach Public Works Contingency Fund. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Mady, Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions or comments to this report? Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. I understand why the funding for this probably increased. We waited 3 years to put this cul-de-sac in, and I don't know if it's weighted. I know I'm using weighted, but it's not a negative weighted. Things happened. It's been 3 years. We've held this this person's money for the last 3 years, $40,000. And now prices have increased to $17,000. I just have a hard time spending taxpayers' money on a cul-de-sac for 3 or 4 residents who reside on that. Like, it's only going to benefit 3 or 4 residents who reside on that street, the people at the very end. So what's the solution? We took their money and then we didn't do anything with it, and we owe them a cul-de-sac. I get that. It's hard to spend taxpayers' money on it. Could we not just give them back the 40,000 plus interest and say, sorry, we didn't get this done?
The payment for the $40,000 was received due to the closure of road allowances neighboring property. And I'll just generalize it, but if there's more specific questions related to the closure of the road allowances, I'll pass it on to our planning expert. But in essence, there was road allowances that were through that property that would indicate that the town would receive additional accesses to McCormick Beach Road through those road allowances in the future. When they made the request to close them, one of the conditions agreed upon was that the property owner would pay the town $40,000 to create a cul-de-sac at the end of McCormick Beach Road. And the main purpose for that was really that it would improve the turning radius for both garbage trucks and for our town-owned snow plows that plow that road. It's also one of the main roads for Viewpoint Winery. So it sees a significant amount of traffic. So providing that turnaround at the end will help to support any kind of activity happening in that tourism industry. So really the cul-de-sac is not just for the residents that reside along McCormick Beach Road, but also for the services that we provide to that road.
Further questions or comments to members of our administration? Councillor Guerin?
Sure, just a clarification, when the 40,000, was that like, was that a number that we agreed on and then we have to hold it? We can't go back and ask for the difference from
Mayor, that's correct. The condition within the agreement was for $40,000 paid in a lump sum to the town for the construction of a cul-de-sac. So it wasn't tied to the actual cost of the day, but of the estimate at that time.
it would depend on which bank, what interest rate. I don't know. I think the intention was to always do the cul-de-sac, right, for the safety and the mobility of that road. It's unfortunate that it costs more, but Counselor Meady?
Madam Chair, if the garbage truck or the snowplow went down that road without a cul-de-sac right now, do they often have to back up down that road?
The mayor, they don't necessarily have to back up for the whole length of the road, but they are trying to make a turnaround on a 2-lane road at the very end. So there has been a bit of, potential encroachment onto neighboring properties, the addition of a gravel at the end of that property. So if you actually travel to the end, there's been many instances where gravel's been laid to try and stop the wheel rutting and the damage to property and private property. So that's what's happening now for those services.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the extra money that we have to spend for the safety of the families that live down there and their children's playing in the front lawn when a garbage truck has to back up at them, or a snowplow, snow drifts and the kids are playing on them, they can't see them. It's needed. It's much needed. This isn't a hard ask for taxpayers, or taxpayers are helping families live safely in Essex. This is what it's for. So I have no problem supporting this. Thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Do you want that noted? Okay. 10.9 Environmental Services, results for request of tender 3-ton dump truck 23017. That environmental services report be received and that council award the request for tender to Carrier Truck Centers in the amount of $184,000, including non-refundable harmonized sales tax, and that council approve the additional $14,800 be funded from water wastewater reserves for capital project heavy dump truck pickup. Needing a mover and a seconder for that. Councilor McGuire-Blaise, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions or comments to this report? Councilor McGuire-Blaise.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm just wondering, it's a question for Director Jurcevic. How much money is in the contingency fund for that? And what's our threshold for the water and water waste and wastewater reserve?
Thank you, through the chair. So I don't have a balance available for you right now. I can pull that and circulate it to council. It's sufficient to cover that, more than sufficient. So the water and wastewater reserves, basically all life cycle costs are put into that reserve and they're incorporated into the rates that taxpayers pay. So this isn't similar to like a tax supported reserve. It is basically within the water rate that a resident pays, we build in the replacement of these assets. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from members of council? Councilor Meady.
Sure. So roads that are 3 years old getting into, I can understand why the money went up on this, but this budget just came to us, this budget. And we're like $15,000 out of the ballpark on this one. Is there any time where we tell our customers that, hey, listen, we only approved this much money and we can't spend more than that? At what point do we stop the bleeding?
Through the chair. So council can at any point decide to do that. Administration is putting forward the best recommendations. So we did only receive one bid on this through the competitive procurement process, something that is not within administration's control. The wait times for trucks are up to 18 months at this point. So even with the purchase of it now, it may not be delivered until well into the 2024 budget year. And they're putting forward vehicles that are well past the replacement cost. I don't know if you recall some of the slides that we saw in the budget presentation, especially within the waterworks division. They're well due past their useful life.
Gerard?
Thank you. Just also wanted to note, the report does indicate that we have already surplus the old truck. And that's because that truck was so old and outside of our amortization period that it could no longer be driven on the road. So we are like Kate is saying, that these trucks are typically replaced every 10 to 15 years, depending on their life cycle model. And the truck that we surplused was from the early 90s. So it's well past its useful life, and we've had to dispose of it already.
Okay, any further, Counselor Garen?
Mr. Mayor. So to administration, so the 18 months that it's taken to get a vehicle like this, is this a direct result of COVID, or has it always been like that? We're just wondering why would we run it right to the end? If it's gonna take 18 months, why wouldn't we know 18 months to 2.5 years early and order then if we know it's gonna take that long to get it?
Through the chair to Councillor Garen. So mainly due to COVID and supply shortages that they've cited, we're experiencing these very significant delays. So based on your recommendation, we're actually going to be putting something forward to council on the concept of early tendering for replacement vehicles such as this that have very standard specifications, part of the asset management renewal program. Just knowing now what the time legs are, but this wasn't the norm.
That, and then once we make that order, I'm assuming we have to make a deposit. So once we make that order, even though we don't get it for 18 months, that will be the price. In other words, they're not saying that's what it's going to be worth in 18 months from now. We're getting what it's worth today, but we're not getting it for 18 months. Okay.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried unanimously. 10.10 Corporate Services, Water, Wastewater Billing, In-House Transition Update. We'll go to Director Drew Spitch.
Thank you. Through the chair. In March of 2023, council resolved to move the function of water and wastewater billings from ELK Energy to an in-house model. The town has since issued an RFP, request for proposal for software, developed an internal transition committee, solidified construction timelines and future work locations of this operation, hired the new water billing coordinator, and advertised for 2 water billing clerks. The first bill residents would see from the town is tentatively scheduled to be delivered in November and December. The months of August and September will be very in-depth planning and transition accompanied by a marketing campaign. The largest impact noted due to the new information acquired since March is the savings of nearly $373,000 on the selection of software vendors through the request for interest process. So the initial report that was put forward included a projected budget that used ELK's existing software platform. That was the best information we had at the time. And the successful vendor that was chosen is the town's current ERP system, which is Central Square Technologies. So the net savings would equate to approximately $223,000 as there will be a period required where the services between ELK and the town overlap. And we'll select a cutoff date and bring that information forward to council once we have that. So the project continues to progress and administration will be presenting another update in the fall. We'll be seeking penalty relief and putting some policies forward regarding the collection of water and wastewater bills. And further progress updates at that time. Thank you.
I have one question at the beginning. Rather than getting paper bills, can residents sign up right away to go online to save on postage?
Thank you. Yes, so we do plan on doing as part of the marketing campaign and media blitz, trying to get as many residents as we can signed up for pre-authorized payment and e-billing. And part of that September report would be having council's endorsement on a potential incentive to sign up for e-billing as well.
Councillor Garen.
Through the mayor. Will rate users be able to go on budget? Or will they have to pay monthly as the bill, as the meters are read, or quarterly? Will they have a choice to go on budget?
I don't, through the chair, I don't see why not, but I'm not that deep into it yet. So I'll make sure to add that as a note to the September update.
Comments from members of council? Seeing none, looking for a motion that the water wastewater billing in-house transition update be received. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor McGuire Blaze, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried unanimously. Oh, reports from our youth council member.
Madam Mayor, so currently down at our Essex Arena, we have the Essex District High School graduation. So on behalf of myself and Councilmember Smith, we'd like to issue congratulations to all graduates of 2023 and hope to see their amazing work in their post-secondary endeavors. Thank you.
For that. Reports from County Council update, Deputy Mayor Shepley.
You, Madam Mayor. On the 7th, we had our official plan meeting. It was relatively uneventful. It was quite a quick meeting, actually. Even not what we expected. And then on a secondary note, we also had a meeting with Doug Ford and the Minister of Health that was spearheaded by Mayor Bondi. And at this point, I want to turn it over to Mayor Bondi, who would like to maybe elaborate on how the meeting went.
We just reached out to the Premier and he so easily agreed. He has a really open door policy, which is amazing. Himself and Sylvia Jones Zoomed with us. Within about a week, we set it up. And David Mouche was there from Windsor Regional. We had our MPP, Anthony Liardi, MPP, Andrew Dowie, our warden, our deputy warden, Bruce Crowder, chief of EMS, and Kristen Kennedy from Erie Shores Hospital. It was a really good first meeting to build relationships. We talked about the code reds and code blacks in the hospital system. We didn't really get like a straight answer in terms of hospital capacity and, what we're doing, but the province is definitely, saying that they're willing partners with nurse offload positions, 50% funding for EMS. And it was just really good to have a good relationship. We also got invited on a ride along with EMS and hospital tours. So the deputy mayor and I, and if others want to come, we will send that invite. We can get a tour of the hospitals and really do our homework too to see how we can make it better. We also, after that, I also asked for a meeting with Chief Crowder to see, what we can do locally to make sure we have enough paramedics. And the last time that there was a code red, code black, which was about a week ago, it was due to down-staffed trucks, so meaning not enough paramedics. So it's definitely a shared problem between the county and the province, but we're not gonna let her pedal off the metal until it's fixed. Correspondence 13.1, correspondence to be received. We will receive all of this correspondence, and then if we want to pull any items out. Looking for a motion to receive all the correspondence. Councillor McGuire Blaze, Deputy Mayor Shepley, get you next to her. Any questions, comments? Councillor, oh, sorry, let's receive them all and then we'll go back to them. Let's motion to receive them all. That's carried unanimously. Councillor Verbeek, you want to pull one out? For a seconder on that piece of correspondence. Councillor Allard, any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, and that's carried unanimously. Any members of council want to pull out any other further correspondence? Okay, seeing none, we will go to committee meeting minutes. That the committee meeting minutes listed in agenda item 14, together with any recommendations to council noted therein, be received and approved and adopted as circulated. Needing a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor McGuire Blaze, any questions or comments on any of those meeting minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, and that's carried unanimously. There was no new business items brought to my attention. I'm looking to see if there's any now. We will go to our clerk for the notices of motion, Director Malandrouklo.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you, the following notice of motion was presented at the May 15, 2023 regular council meeting and is being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Mady that council direct administration to have a comprehensive safety audit of Colchester Beach and waterfront by Life Saving Society and further develop a safety plan based on the findings from the consultant.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Mady.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So this came up with the conversations that we were having with Aqua City when they were looking to take some of our beach down there. And it became to my attention that we hadn't had a comprehensive safety study down there. And such a gem of a facility and all the work that we've been doing down there, I thought it'd be a really good idea to have a safety audit of our area done, and to allow our administration to come up with any plans for the recommendations that come from it.
You, Madam Mayor. I commend Councillor Mady for bringing this forward. I think it's important as you spend the time out there, which I've been spending a lot recently, and the beach it's a beautiful beach. It's packed, it's well used, and I think this is highly appropriate and probably much needed just to make sure we're doing all the things we need to do in the proper steps. Good on you, Councillor Mady.
Questions, comments from members of council? I do have a question for Director Morissette there. What type of price tag are we looking at and what type of time frame, please?
Through you, Mayor Bondi. So the price tag previous to this, when we were doing the research for the Aqua City project, was approximately $4,000. So that would be where we would have to find the funding for that, which after speaking with Director Jurcevic would likely have to come from the council contingency, which has been touched on quite a bit recently. So if that was council's direction to administration, we'd be looking at a few months to be doing this project. It would be quite a bit of work for our administrative team to get the proper documentation and all that stuff ready for the audit. Just as another point, that when we were originally looking at doing this with the Aqua City project, there would have been funding that we would be receiving through generated revenues that would be offsetting the cost of the report, which is why we were looking at doing it at that time with the offsetting revenues, but we don't have that without proceeding with that project.
Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think this time of the year it might be a little late to get it done, but would this not be possibly something that we could allow for and put in the budget, something that we could approve for maybe next year? And it would be something they could get at probably a little quicker into the season. I mean, by the time they do it, it's going to be a little late in the season this year, but I would really like to see it done and possibly for sure for the next budget, no less. Thank you.
Maybe.
Mayor Bondi, that would certainly be administration's recommendation. At this point, we wouldn't get any results from that until after we already submit our budgets. So it would be something that pending we have our budgets approved going into the Christmas holidays, it'd be an easy jumpstart for us in January once we return from the Christmas holidays to start going on that and hopefully be able to implement any recommendations for the upcoming summer.
Madam Mayor, for funding, there's still $12,368 roughly left over from the study that was done for Jackson Street. That I would say we should take the monies from that study and use that for this study.
Okay, and you want to make a friendly amendment to that motion?
Yes, I will.
And the seconder? Okay, any further questions, comments? I see we have the money, or we can make the money. We figure, well, not make it, but we could figure out how to find that much money. But I do worry about the timeline getting it done. I think it needs to get done. Councillor Guerin?
There, just some clarification on the safety audits, like who drives this? I mean, we are all, it's for our beach and our harbor area. Is that what I'm hearing? And is this something that, is there a above governance that tells us we have to do this, or is this something that we just want to do? I'm not following. I know the last time when Aqua City approached us, they had to get it done.
Through you, Mayor Bonnie. So we wouldn't have necessarily a governing body that would be on us, telling us that we have to do implementations. They are recommendations that would be potentially, they could come back with no recommendations, or they could come back with several recommendations, but it isn't something that we haven't done before. So we would have to see what the recommendations are that come back. Also, there could be recommendations that they have that are actual level of service changes for us. So and I'm not saying that this is the case, but let's say hypothetically they said you should have a lifeguard on the beach. Well, that would be up to council to decide if that's a level of service that we'd want to provide for based on those recommendations.
Further that, so that they make recommendations, no one's holding us to it.
That's correct. They would be based on national and provincial standards that the Life Saving Society would have, essentially best practices.
One last one. Do we know if our neighboring communities with beaches and harbors, if they do these type of audits?
Through Mayor Bondi, I can't say definitively for sure, but I'm pretty sure that the beach in Windsor, I think it's Sandpoint, they recently did one. I'm not sure if it was through the same organization, but I'm pretty sure that they did one with some recommendations. I think that was the one where they actually suggested amendments to the beach based on the wave action and those practices. But again, I can't say definitively for sure.
There. So just to kind of recap, administration did recommend using council contingency funds because that is truly meant for ad hoc things that come up during the year. So when there is savings as a result of a project, typically what administration likes to do is put that into reserve and propose it as funding for similar like projects. So knowing that Colchester still needs a parking solution, that's where that money was transferred into that reserve for the intent of that in 2024 budget preparation.
With that information, I'll go back to Councillor Mady. We do have room left in our council contingency budget. Do we want to go back to using our council contingency budget?
For you, Madam Mayor. I understand that typically we like to put them back into reserve and use that reserve for funding of another study. But you know, if the money is there, the money was set to be studied in Colchester for safety, for how the street was. It wasn't just a parking study. If I remember right, when former Councillor Borkman made that study, it had encompassed speeding, it had encompassed parking, it had encompassed traffic calming measures, it had encompassed people walking. So there was lots of other things that money was set aside for and still could be used for. And the safety of the people at the beach and the safety of people that we are allowing to come to our beach should be one of those things that money is allowed for.
Councillor Verbeek?
Having a thought, once we do this audit, which I fully support, and I think it's important that we do it, once this safety audit's done and we get this big laundry list, and it's got some really super high ticket items, like for instance, get a lifeguard on, and God forbid something horrible happens. Does this make us more liable if we haven't followed all of the audit suggestions? And I'm not putting a damper on this motion because I think it's great. I just think that it's part of the conversation too that we should be having.
DAO suite.
Andy, you never know. You always want to have possibly a third party look to make sure you're safe and everything like that. For that beach, one of the recommendations that cannot see is the lifeguard. It is an unsupervised beach. That's how it's classified. Legally, I mean, if you're told there are only going to be recommendations and not directions, so I think we may be all right. I know other places, as Director Morissette has mentioned, Sandpoint Beach has done it. They don't follow all the recommendations. It's kind of what the best practices they'll send back to you.
DAO suite, Councillor Guerin.
So the motion on the table then is to use the money not from contingency, which I'm okay with. I'd rather, it's $4,000 over that we're talking. I would rather not use the contingency money on that. I'd rather keep that for something else. And if it's just $4,000, I think we don't have to put it back in that reserve. I think we can do the 4,000. I'm okay with that.
If there's any council members that haven't spoke yet and you want to speak, Councilor Hammond. Okay, we have Deputy Mayor Shepley and then Councilor Meady has the last words as his motion.
Thank you, Mayor, Madam Mayor. I agree. I think it's important we get it done, whether we find the money this way. I think it's great. But I don't want to, I would be remiss if I don't make sure this doesn't, if we don't get it done, we get it done next year. I think it's important that we have this done. It's very important.
To you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I agree. This has to get done. And I would like it done sooner rather than later. And I think that we have monies available. And I think that with it being summertime and with our beach already winning an award and with all the positive aspects that are happening in Colchester right now, I'm envisioning a report coming back saying, hey, you guys did an awesome job and your beach is perfect. And I would love to be able to share that report and put that out there for social media too. So it's not always negative. It could be positive, guys. Thank you.
So council direct administration to have a comprehensive safety audit of Colchester Beach and waterfront by the Life Saving Society and develop a safety plan, and that the money for that audit come from the cost savings for the Colchester parking fund that we didn't all use. All in favor? Opposed? Then that's carried. Director Malandruclo.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you. The following notice of motion was presented at the June 5th, 2023 regular council meeting and is being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. Moved by Councilor Meady that council direct administration to make Jackson Street south of County Road 50 a community safety zone.
Moved it, needing Councilor Verbeek and Councilor Meady.
Thank you. And to you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you miss one, right? Yeah. So this motion I made, actually hearing that the parking plan was going to be not followed and that Jackson Street was going to be left open as it is right now, and that everybody knows that there's some speeding that happens on Jackson Street, and everybody knows that we need some kind of traffic calming measures, and it's proximity right next to a very utilized and beautiful park, with children at play and with families walking and every reason I could possibly think of that this should be a community safety zone. So that's why I put this motion forward. Thank you.
Comments from members of council. We'll go Councilor Allard. Oh, sorry, I'll go Councilor Allard, Councilor Verbeek, and Deputy Mayor Shepley.
I agree with Jason that this needs to be done, and Councilor Meady, sorry, and that this needs to be done. I also want to look at the idea of the people walking on the street. If we can open up take the fence down along the thing to let people walk on the sidewalk rather than walking on the street. But that's.
Through you, Madam Chair. I guess this is to Director Gerard. I know different times the possibility of speed bumps have come up and there's a lot of positives and negatives about them. I'm not talking about great big speed bumps that are going to bottom out the boat trailers or anything. Is there any possibility of putting some of the the newer kinds that aren't like going over a mountain? They are just raised and they're a little bit of almost like a rubble strip across it. Because I mean, it's not going to bother the people that are driving normal, but it's the yahoos that make it a speedway, because we do have some people that like to rip up that road.
Mayor, so typically we wouldn't recommend any type of speed bump. There are other technologies out there like for traffic calming, like speed humps, or elevated intersections, things like that. But in the absence of a traffic calming policy or anything like that, which would state what the best use for traffic calming would be, I would recommend that we don't include anything like a speed bump or speed humps or anything like that without further investigation and study. I will say that council did approve fairly recently, actually, I would say definitely within the last year, a community safety zone policy. So that does exist. I would say that Jackson Street in this corridor would be applicable to that policy. One of the main objectives of that policy was to be able for council to set community safety zones in areas that were adjacent to playgrounds, parks, and community facilities. So Jackson Street would certainly fit that policy. The only thing I would suggest is that if council does wish to proceed in that manner, that the policy does state that a report will come from administration with a recommendation on whether to include that section of road as a community safety zone. But at this time, it fits the policy very well and would be a recommendation from administration, but we would have to go through the formalities of that policy.
Mayor Shepley, then Counselor Hammond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. To my colleague from Ward 3, it's two really good motions you brought forward tonight, and I will support this. My question is, would there be any cost to this? Any great cost to it anyways, and any negativity that we should be aware of by approving it?
I would say that the cost is fairly low. It's just the addition of 2 signs, community safety zone signs, which could be covered by operational budget, our operations budget. Any changes can sometimes be controversial. However, these aren't regulatory changes like speed limit changes or anything like that. It's really just a designation of a community safety zone under the Highway Traffic Act, which would in essence double fines for things like speeding and any other kind of like illegal activity related to traffic. So I would say no, not any negativity that I can perceive at this moment. But it's a relatively low cost to the municipality and could be covered by our budget this year.
Thank you, Director Gerard. Based on that, I mean, I hope that this goes through. I think I see the kids walking and they're right on the street. If there was ever a road that was called for, this would be one of them. Thank you. And I'll be supporting it.
I just want to point out that we're talking about 12 weeks of the year that we're looking at, where we have a lot of traffic down there. I think it's a great idea that we designate it. I think we should maybe look a little more with our parking study and stuff like that, see about before we put any speed bumps or anything like that, because like I say, it's only 12 weeks of the year that and it's just for a few boneheads that can't behave themselves properly. So I'm against any kind of, changing of the road, particularly due to all the boat traffic that goes down there, but it's just 12 weeks. So, yeah, but as far as the designation, I'm all for that.
J.O. Sweet.
Let council make amendments, but if I can make a suggestion after hearing from Director Gerard, that council direct administration to bring back a report, then it follows our policy, that process.
From the mover and the seconder, that's okay. Okay. I think it's great. And I know that it's only really busy there 12 weeks of the year, but the park's there all the time and there's kids there all the time. So I think and we know when we post 40, people are still speeding. So I think it's great. Any more comments? Councilor Mady, you have the last word if you want to say anything else.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I agree totally. The park is there all year. And that anything that we can do to help out and make it a little bit safer, we should be following. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion as amended? That's carried unanimously. Reports and announcements from members of council. We'll start with Councillor Guerin. Nothing. Councillor Hammond.
We've got our soapbox derby this weekend in Harrow on Saturday morning. So everybody that is a contestant, have your wheels greased, and then close streets the following week on the 30th, Friday night. We'll be closing the streets of Harrow and having many vendors and other activities put on by the Rotary Club and the VIA.
For you, Madam Mayor. So I just wanted to say that Heritage Colchester had their first village market this Saturday, and it was a success. It was beautiful. And it'll be held monthly. So please keep an eye out for them. Thank you.
McGuire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. Just a reminder that the Fun Fest is coming up in the next, what are we, 2 or 3, 4 weeks? Really close. We're still looking for a few more volunteers to make that event a big success. So if you need a couple, maybe high school hours, or you'd just like to help your community, please reach out and we'll get you helping us with this year's Fun Fest.
Harrow's Miracle Food Drive is January 24th. And I know it's not time to give, usually around Christmas people give, but the food drive is the big draw. It really helps.
You, Madam Chair. So also on the opening night of the Fun Fest, we'll be holding our second annual Sip and Shop event. And we organizers, 3 of them are in the room, Councillor Guerin and Councillor McGuire Blaze and myself. We're selling the tickets really fast. We're expecting a bumper crowd, much larger than last year. And the proceeds are going to community living. And I happen to have a purse full of tickets if any other councillors want to pick some up after the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank the Harrow Rotary, the Harrow Kinsmen, the Colchester Guardian, and the Town of Essex staff for a really successful fishing derby in Colchester. It was amazing. The beach and the grounds looked great, and the volunteers did an awesome job. The children's fishing derby was awesome. Both of my girls caught a fish, and it was the first time we ever fished, so it was amazing. I also want to say the Kingsville Highland Games are this Saturday at Jack Minor. All the mayors are throwing haggis. I don't even know what that means, but we'll figure it out. And also, along with the Project Hope and the Harrow Food Bank doing the Miracle Drive, we're also doing the mayor's annual yard sale. Let's hope it doesn't rain because I can't be stuck with all this stuff for a couple more weeks. So come on out. There's definitely something for everybody. And I also want to say happy birthday to our CAO who's turning 49. And there's no, in this card, there's no use of corporate resources in this card, except for Councillor Allard saying the ink in his pen. So happy birthday, Doug, and I hope you have a great birthday. Bylaws 19.1, bylaws that require a third and final reading. Bylaw 2171, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the June 5th, 2023 regular meeting of Council of the Corporation of the Town of Essex be read a third and finally passed June 19th. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Mady, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. Bylaw 2253 being a bylaw to appoint a bylaw property standards enforcement officer in the Town of Essex. We're bringing on 2 part-time bylaw officers. That's why we need 2 bylaws. Bylaw 2253 be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed today. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. Bylaw 2254 being a bylaw to appoint a bylaw officer and property standards enforcement officer. Councillor Allard, Councillor Guerin, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. That's carried unanimously. Bylaw 2212 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the June 9th regular council meeting of the Corporation of the Town of Essex be read a first and second and provisionally adopted today. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Mady, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you for joining us tonight. We do have our future meeting is Tuesday, July 4th, because it's a holiday on the Monday. Have a good evening, everybody. Oh, Troy. Woo! Motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Counselor Allard. I was trying to make up some time. All in favor?